Okay, welcome back to the next part. Let's just go and pull up our work map. There we go. And we are going to be looking at basic animation for our player. I'm not going to go as far as animating NPCs. Um, Maybe I can do a tutorial on that later, although, because animating them could, well, we need to have sort of an AI for the NPC for them to think where to move and everything. So we're not going to go that far in our NPCs. That might be a tutorial for a later date, maybe an intermediate tutorial. All right, so we are moving on to our animation. Let's get back to Unity. Um, OBS go. There it is. Okay, so here we have our player that we've set up, and we want some animation on it. I've already opened a tab in our setup tutorial for my animation, and I'm just going to go and create. Nope, I'm not going to do that. Cancel. I want to click on this, make sure I have the right one selected. And then I'm going to click create. And let's go to our animation folder that we set up. And I'm going to call this idle down, idle D. Okay. In our animation folder, here we have a controller. This is what is going to control in here all of the different animations that we're going to create. And we've got one animation already created. And I'm just going to duplicate this a bunch of times. I need 8 of them. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This will be idle up, idle left, idle right. This will be walk down, walk left, walk right, and walk up. All right, let's start with the idle down since that is the current one that we are using of her facing down. Let's go to our sprites and this a bit bigger. Take a look at it. And I need to access these. So let's just go in here. And for now, I'm going to drag all of them in. So I've got the down already. I just need those guys and these guys. Drag them all in. Okay, so if I come back here, now I've got all of my animations accessible. And idle down. That's going to take number 7. So I'm just going to drag that in here, and we're done. That's idle down. Idle left would be, which one of these is left? That one. So number 10. Idle right was something like 4. 4. Idle up was 1. Okay. Walk down would be these 3, and I need to loop it back to this. Just drag that on there. And a sample rate of 6 is too much. I've done that before, and it should be about 8. Okay, so that's walk down. Walk left is which ones? These ones. So 9, 10, and 11. Bringing number 10 back in at the end. Set the sample rate to 8. Walk right is 3, 4, 5. And bring 4 back in at the end. set that to 8. And lastly, walk up is 0, 0, 1, 2. Let's bring 1 and set that to 8. Okay, so we've got all of these animations created now. This point, I'm going to drag that down there so I can see in the scene. And if I just hit play on this, for instance, there's my walking up. And now we look at our animator. In here, this is where we set up what controls the specific animation that's being shown. Let's shrink that down. Okay. I can actually get rid of all of these because I'm going to be using something else. I'm going to be using something called a blend tree. I'm going to call this idle. And I'm going to make this the default. All of these I can delete. Okay, in this blend tree, I'm going to need some parameters to control it. I don't need a blend, delete that. I do need a float for my X direction, or horizontal, and a float for the Y direction, vertical. And I'm going to need a bool, I'll just call it walking. And they'll switch on or off whether I'm in idle or walking mode. Okay, so in the blend tree, here I've got, oh, an error, go away. Here I've got our blend tree, and it's a two-dimensional simple blend tree, which means using the X and the Y. And I think that error was coming up because I had deleted that blend before I put those parameters in. Now, let's add some motion. Get rid of this. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I am pushing 1 on X and 0 on Y, if I'm pushing -1 on X and 0 on Y, I'm pushing 0 on X, 1 on Y, and 0 on X, -1 on Y. So these are my 4 cardinal points. I've got 4 directions she can walk in. If you're doing a character that has 8 different directions that they can walk in, you would obviously have 8 different points in here. But let us go and put in our animations. Right. So let's go back to our project and animations. And 1 in X is right. So that's idle right. -1 is idling left. 1 in Y is up. And -1 is our down. And as simple as that, we've got our idle animation depending on what direction we're pushing. I can go back to the base layer now. So here's the blend tree. I'm going to duplicate it. And let's rename this to walk. So inside of walk, I'll rename this walk. I never renamed the first one, but it doesn't matter. And it's the same setup, but we're using the walks now. So I'm going to go right to right. I'm going to go left to left. I'm going to go up in the up and down in the down. And that's it. Let me just rename this item. I don't have to, but it's nice. All right. Now we need some transitions to get from the idle to the walking state. All right. In sprite animation, there's no blending between 2 animations. So in the settings, there's no transition from one to the next. It's idle and then it's walk, nothing in between. So no duration, and there's no exit time. So at the end of the animation, it doesn't go back to something. It just keeps looping. And this guy here says that same thing, no transition and no exit time. Now, how do we get from one to the next? This needs a condition. I'm going to set it that the condition has to be walking. and it has to be true. So if walking is true, we're going to go to here. This one says, I will transition if walking is false. And there we have our controllers for our animation setup. We'll go back to our scene. There's our girl. And lots of warnings there. Not important. But something might be important. Difference in effective length between states is too big. What? No. Um, that. Something went wrong here. Why do I not see same? Okay, seems to be gone now. That this wasn't showing a chart, which was weird. All right, no more errors, and we can move on now to how to get this to move based on our code, because I can easily just hit play here, and we can do a little test. If I put 1 in there, she faces that direction. If I put -1, she faces that direction. If I put 1, she faces that way. If I put -1, and if I switch this to walking, then we got the walking animation. Switch back to idle. Okay. Now these I can't control them during playing a game, so I need to control them with the code. And I need to just make sure of one thing before I go into the code, and that's that this is capital X, capital Y, and a capital W. The spelling is important. So here we are in Visual Studio again. And after I've set up my direction, I want to ask a question of if rigid body velocity is not equal to vector2.0, meaning that if the player is moving, because vector2.0 means that nothing's happening, he's not moving. If the player is moving, then let's set the first thing is our anim dot set bool. So I am going to be turning on walking. I'm going to set it to true. After that, anim dot set float. I want to set the float, and I'm going to grab. I could either grab Paris, but I want to grab the RB dot velocity dot x. Let me grab that one, and I need to do the same for the y. I'll make sure this is y. So I'm setting up a direction only if he's moving. Else, if he's not moving, then I want to just set anim dot set bool, and this is going to be walking, and this will be false. I'm not doing anything to the direction because I'm going to pick a direction while I'm moving. When I stop, I should remain facing in that direction. And let's go back to Unity. scene. And I don't think I have anything to set up. It should automatically just work. So if I hit play, when I walk diagonal, it'll pick one of them. If I had a character that had 8 cardinal points, then I can have a diagonal animation. But for now, for top down, this is just perfect. Perfect. All right. We have tackled our animation and we finished animation. Next is we'll look into creating a scene for the player to be in, and that will be in our next video. Thank you, and I'll see you then.